In this video, we're going to talk about growing your property development business. I mean, after all, if you don't grow your business, it dies. And that's true of any business. It stagnates and it really gets held back, usually by the person who owns the business. They are almost the greatest obstacle to most businesses evolving and growing. And the reason for that is, so often the case is, when somebody actually starts a business, they don't really have the experience of running a business or managing a business. They tend to come from some sort of technical aspect, whether it be within property or any other particular type of job. Michael Gerber always refers to this as the entrepreneurial the entrepreneurial seizure. And this is where you take maybe the plumber who starts a plumbing business, the electrician who starts an electrical business, the architect who goes into an architectural business, the lawyer who works for a practice then sets up their own practice. But they don't actually know how to manage and grow that particular business. So it doesn't really matter what it is. Whereas people who have had experience in managing business, and I was very fortunate because that was my background. I was a manager, and so my particular skill was not any particular technical skill, but it was in managing, and so therefore this became a little bit easier for me to be able to do. Nevertheless, working for a large corporation and managing a process and doing it in your own business is entirely different, and the two really don't understand each other. So I'm going to impart with you some of my experience over the years of being in business and developing businesses, but also talking about some of the key things that you need to pay attention to. And at the end of this video also, I've got a couple of free resources that I want to point you to that I think are very important. One is particularly involved in terms of a property development business, but another one is just whatever you're doing in life, it's something that you should actually address because it's a key reason why you're probably doing this in the first place, but you maybe haven't quite crystallized those reasons, and this is what actually helps you spur the growth that you probably truly desire but don't necessarily plan for. Hi, my name is Jim J. Davidson, and I first invested in property in 1973. I completed my first new build development in 2006. As you can imagine, I've made lots of mistakes along the way, but thankfully I've got some things right, and I've managed to build a property development business. In this channel, I want to help you on your journey and perhaps share some of that knowledge with you. And so through this channel, which I hope you will subscribe to, or through our membership app, which I hope you will join, and incidentally it's free, you can learn a little bit more about building houses and building a property development business. The app is available wherever you get your app from, whether you're on iOS or you have an Android phone, or you can get accesses on desktop, and you'll find a link in the description below. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video, and please post your comments in the description below if you have any comments to make. So the first thing I want to talk about is the actual nature of the business being a family business. Now that might be very true, or it may be that you are a single person working in that business. When I say single, I don't mean that you don't have a spouse or a partner. You may have that, but it's only you that works in the business and that other person does something else. And I picked up this book recently. It's another Michael Gerber book. He's famous for the book called The E-Myth Revisited, which I was able to purchase in the 90s, and I've used that extensively. It was interesting because it actually confirmed a lot of the information I already know because I had worked for larger companies. And essentially what he talks about is a franchise system. You build a franchise system like McDonald's, where everything is exactly done to a prescripted recipe, and I'm not talking about necessarily food recipe, but everything is done to a particular specific recipe so that the end result is entirely consistent. And so he's done a number of books which are related to different industries, and this one's called The E-Myth Contractor. Now, actually, the book doesn't actually tell you so much how to systemize the business, but it asks you a lot of important questions. But I just want to draw, because this one really sunk home to me, and it's really actually in the first chapter, and he talks about it being a family business. And I'm just going to read you a bit from here, because he says it so well. So we'll just go to this page here, and he says, unfortunately, unless some family members are actively involved in the business, many contractors tend to compartmentalize their lives, seeing the business as a separate unit from their family. And so what he's saying, and he goes on to talk about that, and but this time probably for a lot of people they're going, well, yes, it should be a completely separate compartment. And he says, well, consider these facts for yourself if they're true. If you're angry at your business, you're angry at your home. If you're out of control in your business, you're generally out of control at home. If you have a communication problem in your business, you have a communication problem generally in your home. If you don't trust in your business, then you don't trust in family life. You don't trust at home. If you're secretive in your business, you'll be secretive in your home. And part of what he's saying here is, and I'm not saying that there's necessarily problems with your personal relationships, but what he's saying is that if you have a partner in life and they don't know what's going on in your business, how can you expect them to understand what's going on in their business? If you're having a financial problem in your business, how can you expect them to understand that? And they're probably thinking, well, we need this new thing in our house, and they don't really understand you have this issue, and you just say, well, we don't have the money just now. But if they really understand the process that you're going through and where the difficulty lies, then they can often suggest information. And that rubs against a lot of people. I find it rubs against me to some extent, because I think, well, it's my business. Why are you getting involved in there? And so that really kind of struck home for me, and I think it's a very important thing. So even though that particular person or family members may not be actively involved in your business, you need to include them in your business so that it provides you with a far greater understanding. Now, the second thing that you start to find in your business, now most businesses start off with a single person, is that you end up doing everything, and that's only natural. You don't necessarily have the resources, and you haven't expanded to be able to afford to take on people. But there's a point where that then overflows and you become overwhelmed because you're doing so many different tasks, and you're probably not very good at a lot of those tasks because they're not really your natural area of expertise. And you kind of struggle with that, you become overwhelmed, you start to work longer and longer hours. I mean, I hear so many times people talking about, well, you need to be putting in 18 hours a week in order to develop a business. Actually, that's not true. What they're saying is that they're putting 18 hours in a week, and usually the reason is that they feel they can't trust anybody else to do the job as well as them. But that can't be true, because there's certain areas where you're not an expert in, and therefore there are other people who could actually do a better job than you. Will they care quite as much as you? Will they have quite the same passion? They can do, but it's likely that they won't. After all, why would they? You're paying them a wage unless you're incentivizing them in another way, but they can certainly take that load off you and do that work, and then you are then free to do the work which you are valued at. And in fact, ultimately, I believe in a business, you want to be able to be in a position where you stand back and you just watch the business from a distance, and therefore you can see any developing problems, you can chart the vision. And that's ultimately what your goal is to take the vision that you have for the business and move that forward while you have people actually implementing that vision. But if you're too close and doing it all the time, you're not going to have time to have that vision, or at least to be able to put it into place. So it's very important that you're able to, as soon as possible, to pull back from the business and start to bring other people into it. Some of that can be virtual people. With property development, a lot of it is going to be people that are working in an office that you create, because you need people on the ground to be able to operate the business. But where you can do it virtually, yes, absolutely. But there will, as I say, there will be people who you need particular expertise in to be able to do it on the ground. So one of the areas that I would think of is like a project manager. So if you're building multiple houses, you need somebody on site to be able to control that process. If that's going to be you, then that's taking you away from crafting the vision of the business. Whereas if you put in a project manager or a site manager to manage that, then they can be dealing with the day-to-day, and you can then be focusing on the next part of the business where you're going to develop it. So your key is to be able to be continually developing the business and thinking about the business and its long-term strategy and how you implement that. Do you do those jobs? Of course you do all of these jobs to begin with, but you should only do the job for as long enough so that you can create a system. And the systems are the driving thing that really makes your business work. So if you do that long enough to create a system so as that there is a consistency for the person that follows, that fulfills those shoes. Now the benefit of creating a system is that when you have it well documented and in place, it means that you're not hostage to that person who's in that position that's replaced you. And that is vitally important, because you may have made a wrong selection, and therefore you need to, after working with them of course and trying to bring them up to the standard that you require, you may need to replace them. Or you have somebody who's very good but then decides that they want to take the next step up and they don't feel that they can grow within your business, then you need to be able to replace them and have the system so that you don't have a lot of downtime to be able to bring them up to speed. So one of the ways that I do this is I have created a separate training portal which is accessible to the various team members, and they were able to access that training. So I don't actually physically have to train them each time. I went through the training once, I recorded it, videoed it, and now they have access. So when somebody comes on board, they have a set process that they go through, and they're able to learn the specifics of their job. Now they may be coming to it with skills, but there is a specific way that we do it in our business, and this is what, as a new team member, I want you to learn, and this is how I want you to do it. And that allows me to give a consistent result. Is it all in place? No, absolutely not. This is an ongoing process. But once I've got that particular bit in place, then I can move to something else, systemize it, and put people in those roles, and then that frees me up. Ultimately, I want to free myself up completely, and particularly for me, because I'm heading into that sort of area where thinking of retirement. I don't believe that I'll ever actually retire, but I don't want to have to be on duty day to day. I want to be able to choose when I want to be there and choose when I don't want to be there. And I want to leave a business that ultimately could be sold as a business because it's a finely tuned machine that works whether I'm there or not. Or if I fall ill, how will the business survive? So that's another reason why you need to systemize your business. Now, a lot of people actually look at employing people as an expenditure, but it's actually an investment. And I would challenge you to think of them as mini profit centers. If you've got somebody, for instance, who's going out looking for your land on a consistent basis, and you know that buying the land at the right price can add substantially to your bottom line, then what they're actually doing is they're generating profit for the business. Far more profit than the expense of employing them. And so that's fundamentally important. You need to look at those particular roles and say, how do they actually add value to my business rather than being an expenditure? And this is particularly important in property development, because if you don't accelerate to the point where you are building higher cash reserves, it is a business that consumes a lot of cash, and therefore you need to be building these higher cash reserves. You want to get yourself into the position where you're operating substantially debt-free, because we all know that the property market goes through cycles, and so therefore we want to get ourselves into a sustainable position so that when there is a market downturn, we can weather through it. So keeping our key people in place, which is vitally important. So we will have some lean years, and so we want to be able to have the resources to be able to weather that, so as that when things really start to ramp back up again, that we are in a position to take advantage of that. Because generally what happens with most businesses is that they start to shed people when you go into a market downturn, and then they struggle to get going again because the key talent has gone elsewhere, and it takes them quite a number of years to really reassemble that key team that they had developed. Though that key team that stayed with you during that period of time will be grateful and much more likely to be loyal to you. So it is very important that you do this also for expanding your business and expanding the cash available. Also, the other thing, which is kind of a slightly off topic in terms of property development, because I always believe that in terms of property development, there should be the development provides the huge cash chunks of money so as that you can then invest in properties, and my preferred area would be commercial properties because they've got a far better return and much considerably less restrictions than the residential letting market has, and so therefore you're then again pulling in cash flow coming in, which is particularly important during these leaner times. Now, you may lose some of that cash flow, but you will retain it to a large extent. The other thing is, again, why you want to build up these cash surpluses, which you do by expanding your business, is so as that you can take advantage of the great market opportunities there will be when there is a property downturn. And I've seen this before, particularly if we go back to 2008, I'm looking at 2010, the opportunities there to acquire land at considerably less money was invaluable. And in fact, what generally happens is that when the property market, and I'm talking about the residential property market, falls, and that's in that 18-year cycle that I've talked about before, what happens is that the property prices, house prices drop, but actually land prices tend to drop further. And so therefore, there's a lot of even on-market opportunities that you're able to get that are not available in more buoyant times, when land prices actually tend to accelerate higher than they do than the general property market or general residential property market. So I promised you a couple of free resources at the end of this video, and the first one I think is fundamentally important, and it's available in our membership community, which is free to join incidentally, and it's called Lifestyle of Choice. And there's 5 modules in this little training course, and they take you through from really establishing what you really want out of life in general, and quantifying that, and then taking you through to the whole process where you create a mini business plan. Now, when you say business plan to people, most people sort of like run a mile because they think of this 100-page document they need to create. Well, this is only a 1-page document, and it's just really to outline the key areas that you want to develop. And this program takes you through that. And then ultimately, the closing of it is, if you go through this program and you prepare that document, then I'm prepared to offer you for free, which is normally a £50 consultation plus VAT, a free 30-minute session where I will go through that business plan with you and see some of the things that you need to do and have that discussion. So I would highly recommend that you utilize that resource. The second one is, I've alluded to before, is about buying land at the right price. And I regularly run, about once a month generally, a program called the 50-Minute Land Breakthrough. And this is where you find off-market land, properly evaluate it, and negotiate a great deal. And the key to that is because it's off-market, you tend to be the only person actually looking at that piece of land, so there's lack of competition there from other people. You have time, therefore, to properly evaluate it, and by properly evaluating it, you put in every cost that is there, and then you present that to the landowner and show them, this is the price that I'm prepared to pay for your land, and it makes sure that I get the right return for the business. And therefore, by getting the right return for the business, you're able to allow your business to grow. Unfortunately, what most people do is that they pay too much money for land, and therefore that stagnates the growth of the business because they're not making the level of profit they should be out of it, and therefore it slows their growth period. Because in property development, money can compound very quickly because you're dealing with large sums of money, and it has this compounding element, and therefore you're able to do larger and larger deals. You can also, just even without building any houses, use this program, because what you can do is you can be a person who sources land, and then you can sell it on to an end user that might be interested in that. So I hope you found that this useful. I'll put some links in below for those couple of resources that I mentioned. And so please utilize them. If you're new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe. I hope you think that there's valuable content. This is video number 99, so we're producing one every week. So there's plenty of content there for you to go around and consume. And also become a member of our membership community. As I said, it's free to join. Again, you'll find a link in the description below about how to do that. And please, if you like this video, like and share. Put some comments below as well. That's always useful to hear what you think about this, and maybe some of your experiences I'd be interested to hear. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to communicating with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos, then click to watch the next video. Please remember to visit our website at builditandprosper.com, to get our app, or click on the button on the YouTube header if you're on desktop.